So hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I'm Leah Derricks, and I'm the Interim Executive Director at the London Environmental Network. And this is our first event. No, it's not the first event of the year. We had a green bin session that was online last week. Some of you may have attended that online, but this is our first in-person event of the year. So thank you all for coming. First, we will begin with a land acknowledgement. As any organization operating on stolen land, but especially as one focused on protecting and restoring the environment, we recognize the importance of acknowledging the land's history and caretakers. We are gathered on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Wauk, and Chinungton nations, on lands connected with the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples that we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. We recognize the three First Nations communities downriver Deshkon-Zibi, Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We also believe in action and having an active commitment to the land and Indigenous peoples. We recognize the inequities connected to colonization and commit to working towards creating a community and city that is resilient, vibrant, and just. I think it's especially important as we are engaging with the city's budget tonight to be aware of our place and privilege in the world. So I have a few questions to ask ourselves to think about tonight. First is, how can we use our voices to uplift others? How can the next 4 years and beyond create a city that puts equity, environment, and sustainability first? How can we create a city that we can be proud of? So questions to leave you with for tonight. And now we're going to dive into our agenda. So first, we will have a 25 to 30-minute presentation, city budget overview from the City of London's financial planning and policy team. We will then move into a Q&A period with the City of London for 15 to 20 minutes. So you're welcome to, at that point, come up and ask your questions on the mic, or if you don't want to, one of our team's members could ask a question for you. And then we will move into our network member presentations for about 30 minutes. And then we'll have some final wrap-up items and just an evening by 8 o'clock. So first, we're going to start off with the budget overview presentation from the City of London. And I will switch the slides in one moment. But first, I will invite Kyle Murray from the City of London to present.
All right, thank you, Leah. Let me see if I can get this clicker working. There it is. Perfect. All right. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. Thanks for the invite to come and say, well, I guess more than a few words. It's definitely a busy time in our world, and certainly an important time as well as we work through the multi-year budget. So this is a timely conversation, I think, tonight, and I'm looking forward to some good conversation, some good discussion. I like to start these off with a reminder that it's important that we all be respectful of each other's opinions and perspectives. I know this is a topic that can bring out some very passionate perspectives and opinions, and not always passionate perspectives or opinions that everybody agrees with. So this is intended to be a safe space. So just encourage everyone to be respectful of each other and your individual opinions and perspectives. So with that, let's get into it. The multi-year budget is now public. It was released back on December the 12th. This is what it looks like. You can find it on our website at london.ca/budget, and also at getinvolved.london.ca/budget as well. So if you haven't had I'll warn you, it's heavy, it's hefty. If you've been there, there, you know that already. So and so in terms of what I thought we'd cover off today, the city's budget process, give you kind of an update on how it works, and kind of make sure you're understanding of that first and foremost. I'll then walk you through the property tax supported budget, and we'll kind of key in on some of those things that may be of particular interest to this group, what the budget means, and how we then shape up or compare to other municipalities across the province. I'll walk you through the water and wastewater budgets very briefly as well. The budget process. We kick off our multi-year budget process with a introductory report, basically a target setting report that we take to kick off the process. We took that back in April of last year as well. That is intended to, at the outset of the process, basically set some parameters or set some direction for city staff in developing the budget itself. So that was the start of the process that happened last April, as I said. And then that leads into the actual formal development of the budget itself, which was a many month undertaking that happened over the course of 2023 leading up to December. And the multi-year budget really then determines the pace of implementation of the city's strategic plan. So, it basically assigns or aligns the financial resources that are necessary to implement the strategic plan. So basically, how fast or how slow are we going to go in implementing the strategic plan? Now, it's obviously a very important process that we're going through this year. It does set the course for the next 4 years. But having said that, things are not set in stone. So we still need the ability to pivot to course correct as we need to during the course of the 4-year cycle. And we have our annual budget update process to do that. So that gives us the opportunity to, adjust or correct for things such as what we've noted on screen here. So, new or changed legislation that comes up, we need the ability to adapt to that. We need the ability to, respond to new council direction as well. And we need the ability to adjust for any kind of unanticipated cost or revenue things that might come up during the course of the cycle. So as important as the multi-year budget is, there is still the ability to adjust on the fly as we need to. So there's a couple kind of primary components, I guess, to the budget itself. The kind of core part is what we refer to as the base budgets. That's basically the cost to continue doing what we're doing, or the cost to maintain our existing services and service levels. So that makes up the majority of the budget, certainly. And that's basically, again, what do we need to kind of continue doing the like for like things that we've been delivering to date. The other piece is any adjustments that we want to make, either increases to services or service levels or decreases as well. So it's the ability to make those adjustments either up or down to what we're currently doing. So whenever we're doing that, we support those adjustments with a business case in our multi-year budget. So you will see a number of business cases that have been prepared, and those are a big component of the multi-year budget process as well. So those two pieces combined make up the overall budget for the city. So with that, we'll get into, I guess, a bit of an overview of the base budgets and how those are shaping up. So I guess in a nutshell, the 4-year average tax levy increase that we require to continue doing what we're doing or to maintain existing service levels is coming in at 4.9%. That is perhaps a little higher than what we've seen maybe in recent times. Obviously, for those who have maybe followed the city's budget process over the years, you know that it's been less than that typically, but I think, as all of you I'm sure know, we're in some challenging times as far as increased costs are concerned. Everything is simply costing more than it has previously. So as a municipality, we are not immune to that at all. We have the same inflationary pressures, and obviously we buy different things than, groceries for the house, but we have the same inflationary challenges that everybody has. So we are feeling that, we're experiencing that, and that is why this kind of 4-year average is perhaps a little higher than it has historically been. This is kind of just a quick sense of what that translates into, that 4.9% 4-year average. That would represent approximately $175 per year to the average residential taxpayer. Now, very few people are exactly average, of course. Many are going to be above, many are going to be below, but on an average, it's $175 per year increase. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. This is really just kind of where we get our money and where we spend our money, basically. So obviously for our property tax budget, the primary source of financing for that is property taxes. That's about 2/3 of our total funding that we receive comes from property taxes. Pretty good chunk of that comes from government grants and subsidies as well. So this would be funding from either the province or the federal governments. In terms of where we spend our money, the biggest pieces are housing, social and health services. That's the largest component of the pie. Protective services is a big piece of the pie as well, as is financial management, which is largely the cost to finance our capital plan. That's the big piece that goes in that category. And transportation is a big component of where we spend our money as well. So on the capital side of our budget, we have a proposed 4-year spending plan of about $1.3 billion in this multi-year budget. The 10-year total is north of $2.8 billion. You can see kind of how that's distributed between the different categories of capital spending. So there's really 3 categories: life cycle, growth, and service improvement. Life cycle is the green bars at the bottom of this slide. Growth is the gray bars, and blue is the service improvement. So the categories themselves are pretty self-explanatory. Life cycle is to replace the existing assets that we have in the city already. Growth is to build new assets, and service improvement is to improve existing assets. So that's our capital budget in a nutshell. So business cases. This is, again, the second big component of the overall multi-year budget. So like I say, anytime that we're making an adjustment to a program or service level, either increasing or decreasing it, we prepare a business case to support it. So there are a number of different things that are captured. Obviously, those changes to programs or services are the major one. But it could also, be situations where we've perhaps introduced a program or service temporarily, and now we want to make it permanent. That would be another example of something we would put together a business case to support. We would, do a business case as well for, any capital projects that have really significant cost increases as well. That's another reason, I guess, we would prepare a business case. So there are a number of different things, I guess, covered by the business cases that we put together. So there are a lot of business cases. For those of you who have already been over to that corner of the room, you will see the extensive list. There are north of 100 total business cases in this budget between the property tax, water and wastewater budgets. So because of the sheer volume, we've categorized them into 3 categories, basically. There are legislative changes. So these are business cases where there's been a change that has happened at another level of government that has been thrust upon the city, essentially, and has financial consequences for us. So we've summarized those impacts in what we call legislative change business cases. The second category, and this goes back to the kickoff report for the multi-year budget that we took to council back in April of last year. But at that time, council expressed a desire to see options totaling 0.5% for potential additional investment. So to be kind of consistent and true to that, we've categorized a number of business cases, I believe 7 in total, in what we've called the administratively prioritized category. And because that's a relatively small amount of funding, 0.5% really does not translate into that much money. We've had to really narrow down what criteria we've applied to the business cases to determine what's in that category. So we've really narrowed it down to urgent corporate health and life safety needs, imminent risks to infrastructure systems, or capital projects with significant unavoidable cost increases. So that's the lens that we've put on this category. And again, this is strictly to be consistent with the direction that council provided us last year. And then everything else we have, all the other business cases end up in the third category, which is aptly named all other, basically. So this is the breakdown between the 3 categories of business cases. So on the property tax budget, there are 87 total business cases. If you were to approve all of them, and these numbers are slightly outdated, but you're adding, more than 4% to the total tax levy increase if all of the business cases were to be approved. But that just kind of gives you a rough sense. Not that they're going to be, but if they were, that's what we'd be looking at. So all the business cases, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them today, but all of them are in our budget document. You can go, you can read them, you can learn more. And I think the important thing I'll note here is, despite how we've classified or categorize these things, council can choose to approve or not approve any or all of them. So this is just our, I guess, first cut at how to group them. So again, I mentioned, obviously, the strategic plan is the foundation of our budget process. So we've grouped our business cases according to the strategic areas of focus in our strategic plan. So this is the breakdown by the 8 strategic areas of focus. I think the one thing, or the important thing to note here is, just because there are some categories that maybe have fewer business cases, doesn't mean that those categories are any less important. It just means that in a lot of cases, we can fund the needs in those areas through existing resources. We don't need new or additional resources for a lot of those things. So this isn't in any way a value judgment on any of those categories, basically. So I've included a few examples in the slides here of business cases in various categories. All of the business cases, as I mentioned, are on the boards in the corner over there. I've highlighted a few that I think might be of particular interest to this group. I'm not going into the weeds on these tonight. We don't have time for that. But there's a few things, even in the legislative change category, that might be of particular interest. The multi-residential organics or green bin program is one of the legislative change business cases. So many of you, probably all of you, are quite familiar with the residential green bin rollout that's currently ongoing. This is the multi-residential component that comes next. So that's that business case. There's a number of Conservation Authority Act changes as well that are occurring that have financial impacts. So we've captured those in a legislative change case as well. In the administratively prioritized section, there is one case I think that would be of particular interest. This is the business case related to rapid transit and the additional costs that are going to need to be incurred to finish that project off. So that is in the administratively prioritized section. In the housing and homelessness category, I'll just flag very, very quickly the LMCH regeneration of community housing business case. That business case may have opportunities for energy efficiency enhancements as part of that work that's being done. So that may be something that as part of that business case and the resulting projects can be considered. Economic growth, culture, and prosperity. There's one business case I'll flag in that category, the downtown parking strategy update. That is direction that we are being provided as civic administration to go and update that one. So I just flagged that as, again, there's obviously environmental impacts associated with commuting and supporting downtown parking as well. Mobility and transportation. This one has a few business cases that are probably of interest to this group in particular. There is a business case from London Transit to support enhancements to service hours. So this is improving London Transit service, basically. There's a business case related to the transition of the London Transit fleet to zero emissions buses. So there was a preliminary budget that was approved a few years back to start that transition. This is the business case to continue that work. And there's also a road safety enhancements business case in that category as well. Well-being and safety has a number of potential cases that may be of interest as well. Community gardens program expansion. There's a business case for the naturalization of boulevards and reduced roadside grass cutting. So that's actually maybe a bit of a win-win in the sense that it has cost savings and it also has fewer emissions as well. So there's certainly dual benefits there. There's parks operations enhancements contemplated in another business case. River Road Park is subject to another business case as well. So this would be starting to make investments in that space that used to be the previous River Road Golf Course. And there's a business case as well for neighborhood decision-making and expanding that program, which may allow the opportunity for more environmental type projects to be approved as part of that program as well. So climate action and sustainable growth. This is a big category for this group. There's a lot of things in this category that I'll mention. Climate Emergency Action Plan is obviously the big one that is a rather large business case with a lot of different pieces, a lot of different components aimed at implementing and advancing the city's Climate Emergency Action Plan. There is a business case as well in this category for the second phase of the London Transit Commission's Highbury facility. And this one is, I flagged it because it's one of those things that's necessary to continue that conversion to the electric fleet down the road. So the Transit Commission needs the charging capacity to support the fleet. So this project supports that as well. There's an ecological master planning funding business case. There's additional funding for environmentally significant areas, as well as Silver Creek ecological enhancements as well. So a lot of business cases, I would imagine, of interest in that category. And then I just flag alternative work strategies in the well-run city as well. So this is to kind of continue the rollout of the alternative work strategies for city employees. This may be of interest because it may result in reductions in greenhouse gas emissions as it relates to employees commuting to work. So there may be interest in that case as well. Okay. This is just a little context more than anything. It's not hugely important that you remember all of this, but I wanted to include some kind of context in terms of setting the stage for where we are heading into the budget. Two different slides kind of shape up relative to other Ontario municipalities. So in these slides, you'll see London is the green bar, and then the average is the red bar, the median is the orange bar. So what this one is showing is for municipalities in Ontario with populations greater than 100,000 people, so large Ontario municipalities, this is average residential taxes. So London is, I guess, third from the bottom in this case at $3,536 per year. The average is $4,787 per year. I should mention as well that this is not information that I make up. This is from a third-party independent consultant that pulls this together every year. So this is kind of independent information that we source. This one is average residential taxes as a percentage of household income. So basically an affordability measure, essentially. And London comes in at 3.5% of household income. The average and the median are both at 3.9. This is commercial taxes. Again, pretty similar story. London's third from the bottom. Industrial, London is second from the bottom in this case, and well below the average and the median. So why am I showing you this? Well, I think it's important to know if we're contemplating additional investments in certain areas, obviously that comes at a cost. And, I think that needs to be weighed or assessed against kind of how we shape up or compare to others. So I think it's good contextual information basically, and it gives you a sense of our starting point for this year. Now, in terms of tax levy increases this year, this is a graph to show how we compare to other, again, large Ontario municipalities. This is a mix of single tier, lower tier, and upper tier municipalities. And anything in red are basically final tax levy increases for those municipalities, or anything blue is still draft or proposed. So the purpose of this really is to just illustrate that we are not alone in facing budget pressures and budget challenges this year. Other municipalities are very much in the same boat and dealing with their own pressures. So kind of we're all in the same boat, so to speak, I guess, this year, and all facing challenges. Okay, water and wastewater. This one maybe gets a little less attention perhaps than the property tax budget, but it's still important. As it relates to the water budget, the proposal is for 2.5% annual tax levy increase, or sorry, water rate increases over the 4-year period. So 2.5% each year. That translates into $14 per year in terms of an increase for the average water user. Not going to spend a lot of time here either, but again, this is just where we get our water dollars and where we spend our water dollars. Obviously, both water and wastewater are very infrastructure heavy services. So a lot of the money that we do collect for those services goes to pay for the pipes in the ground, basically. From a capital plan perspective, the water capital plan is $320 million over the 4-year period. The 4-year total is about 700 million. So, maybe the water budget doesn't get a ton of attention, at least compared to the tax budget, but it's still pretty significant dollars as well. On the wastewater side of things, the plan is for 4% tax levy. Said it again. Wastewater rate increases each year over the 4-year period. That translates into a $29 average increase per year for the average residential user. Again, similar story for wastewater. A lot of the money that we collect goes to pay for the capital plan, which is significant, 600 million over the 4 years and 1.3 billion over the 10-year full capital plan, basically. On the wastewater and the water side of things as it relates to business cases. So we only have 2 categories for these business cases. So legislative changes, as well as basically everything else. So pretty similar categorization to the property tax budget. And what you'll see when you're looking at the business cases is, particularly in the legislative change category, there's a lot of overlap with the legislative changes that are impacting the property tax budget as well. So you'll see a lot of similarities between those business cases. So there's a lot fewer business cases for water and wastewater. There's only 3 water business cases, 2 legislative changes, and 1 that falls into the other category. 13 wastewater business cases, 4 of them are legislative changes, and 9 are primarily capital project adjustments. So again, all of those are in the budget document. You can look at those at your leisure. Just to give you a sense of some of them, again, Conservation Authority Act changes affect the wastewater budget as well. And there are a number of wastewater cases in particular that, I think have, shall we say, environmental impacts or consequences, or look to mitigate potential environmental impacts or consequences that this group may find of particular interest. Okay, strong mayors. So this is new this year. It's not something we've ever had to deal with in the budget process before. It was something that the provincial government introduced this past year, and it now applies to 46 municipalities across the province, London being one of them. And basically what the legislation says is that if you're proposing a budget on or before February 1st, it is the mayor's budget. If it's after February 1st, it is council's responsibility. So there is no ability for the mayor to opt out of this process. If you're proposing a budget by February 1st, it is automatically the mayor's budget. He can't say, no, thank you, I don't want it. It is his. He can't delegate it to us as staff or to council. It is his. So that's an important change. I think the other important thing to emphasize as well is that the budget that we released on December 12th is our budget that we've prepared as city staff. It's intended for exactly this purpose, to engage with the community, to find out what the community's priorities are, and to have these conversations about the various choices in the budget. But to be clear, that budget that you see up on our website is the draft budget. It is not the mayor's proposed budget. The mayor has given strong indication, I would say, that he intends to propose his own budget. I think it will heavily leverage what you see on the website and what we released in draft on December 12th. But I believe it is his intention to put something out there publicly before that February 1st deadline. The important thing I think to note here, and I'll get into it maybe on the next slide as well, but there are processes as well for council to amend what the mayor puts forward. So it's not just kind of necessarily what the mayor says goes. There is a process that we have to follow. So again, the mayor, if he proposes a budget by February 1st, that's great. Otherwise, it is council's responsibility. If he does put a budget out there by February 1st, that then starts a 30-day clock for council to make amendments to the budget. So basically the council can say, no, I don't support this piece, take it out, or you didn't include this piece, add it in. There's a 30-day period for council to do that. If there are no council amendments or council amendments that don't get majority support, then the budget is deemed adopted, basically, as proposed by the mayor. So it's a deemed adoption, basically based on the passage of time. Now, if there are council amendments, that then opens a 10-day period for the mayor to veto the council changes to the budget. So the mayor can say, no, thank you. I don't support what council has put forward as an amendment to my budget. I'm going to veto that change. If he doesn't, great. You know, that kind of ends the story. The budget is deemed adopted with those council amendments. But if he chooses to veto something, that then opens a 15-day period for council to override the mayor's veto. So it's a bit of a process, certainly, but in order to override a veto, the council needs a 2/3 majority to do so. Rather than just a straight majority, it needs to be a 2/3 majority. If they don't get that 2/3 majority, then the budget is again deemed adopted as put forward by the mayor. So, and then of course, if they do get the 2/3 majority, then the budget is adopted with council amendments. So again, quite the process, quite the new process. We've never been through this before. This is uncharted waters, basically. So we'll see how it goes this year. And really, the kind of first step in the process is the mayor electing to put forward a budget by February 1st. Okay, the most important part of the presentation, in my opinion, key dates and how you can get involved. So the formal budget release was back on December 12th. The next key date is really the public participation meeting, the first public participation meeting. That's happening on January 29th, so a couple of weeks from now. Public participation meeting, for those of you who don't know what that is basically a meeting of, in this case, budget committee, which is all members of council. So it's your opportunity to basically come out to City Hall and address all members of council sitting as the budget committee. So you can provide your feedback to all members of council at the same time. So that meeting is January 29th, starting at 4 o'clock. We then get into budget deliberations. That's pretty much my life in the month of February. And so we have a number of days set aside, and hopefully we don't need them all, but I think we have 8 days at this point. So that will be budget deliberations in February. We then have a second public participation meeting scheduled for February 27th. So this would be basically the opportunity to come back out, perhaps, and for some of you, and weigh in on those decisions that council has made as part of their deliberations. So those are the kind of the key dates. We have other resources out there as well. I'll point you in particular to our online business case survey. So some of you may have already done this, but this is on our Get Involved page at getinvolved.london.ca/budget. There's a link you can follow there to take the business case survey. And this is basically your opportunity to weigh in on which business cases you support. So you can go through and you can select. There's no limits on number of cases you support or anything like that. You can choose one, you can choose 101, whatever you want. And so I encourage all of you to go and to take some time over the next couple of weeks to complete that survey as well. We have a neat little tool as well on our website that lets you see where your property taxes are spent. So you can enter the total amount of your property taxes, and it shows kind of what services those go to fund. if any of you really want to learn more about municipal finances, which I don't know. I mean, you can, but I don't know if I don't know if I encourage it. But anyways, we have finance flicks that are on our Get Involved page as well. They're short, kind of 2 to 3 minute YouTube videos that kind of illustrate how various elements of our processes work. So how we budget, that sort of thing, how your tax bill is calculated. So those are good resources too, I think, if you're interested. Okay, so the most important slide of all, I would say, is how you can get involved and how you can provide your input. So I think the starting point, first and foremost, is to review the budget materials, educate yourselves, understand kind of the decision points that are part of this budget, put some thought into what you support and don't support. So again, all of our materials are online. You can go and review them at your own time and pace. And based on that, then it's critical to submit your feedback to your counselor. I love talking to all of you. I'm not the decision maker though, folks. At the end of the day, it is the mayor and the council who are making the decisions on the budget. So I love to hear from all of you, but at the end of the day, it's not my opinion that matters. It is the mayor and the council. So it's critical that they hear from you. And again, there's a couple ways to do that. So I talked about the PPM, the 2 PPMs, I guess, public participation meetings. Those are your opportunity again to go and address council as a whole. So you can speak to all councilors at the same time. You can do that certainly in person. There are also options if you don't feel comfortable going and speaking to council in person. You can also do a written submission as well. So that's certainly an option as well. But certainly that's the most effective way to get your voice heard with council as a whole. The other option, if you prefer, is to contact your ward councillor directly. So if you don't know who your councillor is, you can find that information on our website. But you can reach out directly to your councillor and express your views to them one-on-one as well. So regardless of what option you choose, again, it's critical that counselors or your counselor in particular hear your views and perspectives, okay? I'll leave this up there. This is our contact information. If you have questions about the budget, please feel free to reach out to my team. Happy to answer them, try to turn those around as quickly as we can. I have a couple members of my team here with me tonight in the nice purple shirts at the back of the room. They're trying to hide their purple shirts. I don't think they like purple or something, but Jason Davies and Rick Lamon are members of our financial planning and policy team as well. So later on in the evening, we'll just kind of hang out over there in the corner by the display boards, and we're happy to answer any questions over there as well. So in the meantime, I am happy to take any questions that you want to ask now. So Sandy, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Somebody other than me is going to have to follow this. I was completely unaware of their things. And I believe, I agree with you. I think we'll table something. The question is, public meeting on January 29th. Does the public have any idea when the mayor's project connect with that? And then the 30-day period will apparently February 27th meeting as well. Yep. So it almost appears to me that the most effective place right now is to get the mayor, because the 2/3 veto, if I remember correctly, is 9 members of council.
Yeah, could be 10 even.
10?
Could be, yeah.
So whatever gets tabled by the mayor.
So yes, so So it's a great question. Yes. So I think from what I've been hearing from the mayor, his intention would be that, and I suspect he will put something out, but I suspect that will not happen until January 30th or 31st. He has to do it by February 1st. So, I mean, it can't be any later than that. But I think the mayor has committed to not putting anything out there until he hears from the public on January 29th. So I know he will not be finalizing any of his decisions until he hears what the public has to say on the 29th. You know, and then that will start the 30-day clock from, you know, let's say January 31st. And that will then carry over and will encompass that February 27th public participation meeting as well. So there'll still be the opportunity for council, based on what they hear on February 27th, if they wish to kind of put forward amendments, there's still that opportunity and that ability to do so. So the timing actually coincidentally works out well with the new legislation. We got somewhat fortunate that way, but it will be definitely a new process this year. So does that answer your question, Sandy? Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment that for people who are familiar with public participation sessions and who like to be punctual, you don't have to worry. Last time it had like 3 hours long, 4 hours, maybe
Yes.
5. So if you work until 5 or 6,
Yeah.
you can still come by and get a chance on things. Don't feel like you have to be there.
Yes, great point. The meeting does start at 4, but you do not have to be there at 4. I can't imagine we'll be done by 5 o'clock. I imagine it will be a pretty long night. So back of the room, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
It is, I would say yep. Yeah, I would say it is somewhat available, maybe not in that sliding kind of tool that maybe you would have seen in the past, but it's really the business case survey. That's the important, I guess, piece that we're encouraging everyone to use and to provide their feedback through. And that's basically your opportunity to say, okay, I support these elements in addition to the base budget for the city. So we've really chosen, at least this time around, given the north of 100 business cases that we're dealing with and the various options that we have as far as the business cases are concerned, to really make that the focus rather than kind of delving into the base budget piece, which, you know, quite frankly, those of you in this room aren't going to have a lot of visibility or insight necessarily into the base budgets, because that is the accumulation of an awful lot of stuff, an awful lot of costs, and an awful lot of city operations that, you know, we deliver 90 plus services. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the base budgets, and that doesn't certainly make them less important or anything. It's just, it's a bigger thing to understand. So we thought, you know, given the particular focus this time around on the business cases, that's probably the opportunity for the most meaningful and helpful, useful feedback into the process in terms of those adjustments that the council will be considering through the budget. So please fill out the business case survey and provide your comments and your suggestions that way. I thought I saw another one right here.
There's a mic over there.
Okay.
Questions, just because it's streaming on Zoom as well. So
Perfect. Go to Mary Ann first, and then back to you, Sandy.
Question about the legislative changes.
Yes.
So these have been legislated. My understanding is if they are not included in the budget, we have to pay for them anyway. So it's a way to keep the budget low, and then we actually.
So it is not just an artificially low budget. So we've carved them out separately as what we're calling legislative change business cases, really to give more insight into those things that in those cases, we quite frankly have very little discretion around. These are things that we essentially have to do. The government, the provincial government, in most cases, has said that we need to do these things. So they've been carved out separately. They've been given their own kind of dedicated space so that everybody can understand and appreciate what those impacts are. And I know that there's also been some discussion around the potential of, in some way, I guess you'd say, itemizing or flagging those things, in particular on tax bills, so people understand what components of the increase are actually driven by other levels of government. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's just an idea that's been floated by some members of council, but by separating those pieces out into the legislative change business cases, it makes it easier to isolate on that.
One more on the mayor piece. So do I have it straight in my head that if there's a particular business case that is not included in the mayor's budget, that'll require 10 members of council to get it put in?
No.
And then adopted, or
no.
walk me through that?
Sure. So let's say the mayor puts in a handful of business cases in his budget, his proposed budget, and it's not one of the business cases that perhaps you support. The first checkpoint is whether there's a straight, simple majority of council that want to amend the budget and add it in. So, a simple majority, being 8 members of council, could propose and approve an amendment to put it in the mayor's budget. Now, okay, let's say you get that majority of council. That then opens up the opportunity for for the mayor to veto that. So the mayor can say, no, council, I disagree with you adding that business case in. I'm going to take it out. Well, if he does that, then that opens the window for the council to override that veto. But that's when they need the 2/3 majority, only to override a veto. If it's a simple, straight amendment to what the mayor puts forward, kind of the first checkpoint in the process, that's just an 8-member majority of council.
So building on that, so how is the process going to unfold during the budget discussions? Has that been clarified for both council and the public and staff?
That is admittedly a work in progress as we speak. So what I would envision likely, though, is the deliberations process will kick off with an overview from the mayor of what he has included in his proposed budget. That will basically be our starting point. So that's the new starting point, essentially. It's not the December 12th document. It's okay, this is what the mayor is putting forward as his budget. And then the process will be working through any amendments that any councillor wants to make to what the mayor has put forward. Now, we are in the process of canvassing all councillors to understand kind of what their major issues are, what their major priorities are, and that I think will help guide maybe what the focus is, or what we'll start with, maybe as far as any amendments are concerned. But that's still kind of the process that we're working through now. Yes. Sure. Yep. Yep. So the question really is in relation to some of the business cases that are proposed to be funded through reserve funds as opposed to an increase in taxes. So really the kind of the first starting point is differentiating kind of the nature of what is being requested in the business case. So is it a permanent thing? So something that we need to pay for or do every year or on a regular basis. And it's, in other words, it's got ongoing costs associated with it versus is it something that is a one-time thing or one-time cost in nature. So the important thing to know about reserve funds is they are what we call one-time dollars. Okay. So it's one-time money that if you use it, it's gone basically. So one of our core financial policies is that one-time funding sources, such as reserve funds, should only be used to pay for one-time costs. So in a lot of cases, those business cases that you will see with tax impacts are those business cases that have ongoing costs that need to be paid for year after year after year and require a permanent funding source such as taxes to pay for. So that's kind of the first point. And then, we have a number of different reserve funds, dozens and dozens of different reserve funds. Pretty much a reserve fund for every purpose, pretty much, but all those reserve funds have different balances. So we are somewhat constrained as well by the available balances in those reserve funds. So just because we have a reserve fund for something for a particular purpose, and we have a potential one-time cost, we may not necessarily have enough money sitting in that reserve fund to pay for it. So it's not always an option, even for one-time costs. So does that help? Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, thanks everyone for participating in the Q&A, and thanks to Kyle for the presentation. So we're good for time. We're a little behind, but it's okay. We've got a few LEN members that are going to share some more ways to engage and specifically environmental focus areas that they want to advocate for. So everyone will have like 5 minutes, wrap up by 7:45. We're great. I am first with the London Environmental Network. So if you aren't familiar with LEN, here is a quick overview. So we are a registered charity that runs programs and events in a variety of areas shown here. We essentially work to create positive environmental change in London. And part of that is through doing advocacy and events like this one. So our team at LEN has reviewed the budget and the business cases. We identified 28 cases that connected to the environment. We then organized them into focus areas shown here, and we summarized them, and all that information is available on our website. In our review, we ranked them from low to high priority, but we encourage you to look at them all and see which ones you resonate with. Overall, we were really impressed with the amount of environmentally supportive business cases compared to previous budget cycles. And we liked the use of the ESG lens that was applied in the business cases. But the case I want to spend the most time talking about tonight is P56, the Climate Emergency Action Plan, or CEAP implementation support. This case is critical for implementing a variety of emission reduction strategies that will help us reach the targets that for 2030 and 2050 that were set out in the CEAP. Some of you may remember, or you may have played a really important part in getting the city to declare a climate emergency back in 2019, and then the CEAP approval in 2022. So it's now 2024. And it's really important that we keep the pressure on for CEAP implementation. We have the plan, we know what needs to be done, and now is the time for us to allocate resources so that we can take action. What we like about this case is that it tackles three major areas where funding is needed if we want to ramp up climate action in London. The first area is community and business support investment. This part of the case looks at making emission reductions easier, more affordable, and more attractive for households and businesses. It addresses two major sources of emissions in London: household heating and cooling through the home energy retrofit financing program, and the second area of emissions being transportation through the Smart Commute London program. The second area is community-led action investment, and this area is mainly to support community funding and education and awareness for climate action. Funding in this area will lead to a more informed community that has the resources to take on climate action initiatives more independently. And the third area is corporate investment. So this part is about integrating climate action into the city's processes, as well as buildings, fleets, and reports. And this is really important for accountability from the city, and also to be able to track our progress over time. So overall, this business case is a small drop in the bucket of the overall multi-year budget. After initial investment, it will lead to emission reductions and annual taxpayer cost savings. The average annual tax levy impact is 0.31% and $50.93 for the average taxpayer. So when we think about the cost of climate change, things like increased utility bills, food costs, damage from extreme weather, and then we think about an average of $50 more for a more sustainable city for us and for future generations. We believe that funding climate action is an obvious choice for council, and that's what we'll be asking for this budget cycle. So we know we want SEEP implementation to be funded. How do we do that? First, let your councillor and the mayor know. This is really important because of the strong mayor powers. You don't have to send them an essay. In fact, they probably won't read it. So try to keep it short, to the point, and ask them direct questions. For example, you can say, I reviewed the draft multi-year budget and I care about climate action and sustainable growth. I want to see business case number 56 funded in its entirety in the budget. Will you support this in the budget deliberations? That's all you need to say. So once you've done that, the next thing to do is to submit your feedback online by January 29th at 9 a.m. on the city's Get Involved page. Third, you can attend one of the upcoming PPMs. This is a great way to connect with your representatives in person and tell them your priorities again. And last but not least, you can help us share our message. So we have a lot of posts going out on social media. We have resources on our website, and we'd love for you to share them on your feed to a friend, or even message them to your city councillor. So I will leave it there for now. I do have a couple slides to wrap up our evening very, very quickly. But next, I'll pass it off to our LEN members. So we're going to hear from ReForest London, London Cycle Link, Thames Talbot Land Trust, and Middlesex London Food Policy Council, almost forgot, and Climate Action London. So first, I will invite Shaquille Seeley of ReForest London to come on up.
Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, thank you for being able to come on out here. I'm Shaquille Seeley, the operations manager at ReForest London. What we are driven by is a vision for London to be thriving in a healthy urban forest. And so as I take my time up here today, I'm really wanting everyone to realize that this is our opportunity to really shape what London looks like in the future, not only in the next 4 years, but moving forward. And so that's our shared responsibility. So please get engaged, please contact your councillor, please contact the mayor and be involved. I'm going to be talking specifically about 3 different business cases. Leah did a great job of outlining the SEEP. As an organization, ReForest London we do believe in the Climate Emergency Action Plan, and it is one of the pieces that we do want funded. But I am going to take time to talk about 3 other ones. The first being the naturalization of boulevards. So this is actually one of the few business cases that come with cost savings, and it is absolutely massive. It has a chance to reduce emissions, but also bring our city to a point where we have better balance with nature, not only our wildlife and our pollinators, but also with the well-being of Londoners. So if for those of you that don't know, naturalized boulevards will allow us to have saving money in terms of street needing to go out to neighborhoods to mow, but also by our pollinators, the native wildlife now too, as well as take care of the other plants within the. So if you already think that the native gardens that some of your neighbors have or yourself already has, this is just an additional add-on. It is one upfront cost, but it leads to long-term savings. Next up is looking at the River Road Park. So in 2021, the city decided that River Road Golf Course would be a great place to be a park. Within this business case is money that is going to be able to be put aside for number one, stabilization of the park, but the key piece of I truly consultations. If this business case is not passed, forestry still needs to be able to stabilize the park, and that means they have to reallocate funds within their budget already. What that means for us is less service delivery within our other parks. So it does have an impact on the services we will feel, and it also has long-term impacts in us not being able to move this amazing project for the community forward. What that also means is the community consultation aspect may not be done at the level that we know as Londoners we deserve. Final business case is, I want to ask how many of you have been involved with a nonprofit within the city, whether it be a charity, grassroots level. One business case that is in here that is not just solely about the environment, however, we are definitely impacted as environmental NGOs, is this pillar case. For those of you that don't know, most nonprofit organizations have been directly impacted by Pillar and the services they provide in our ability to develop capacity. I would not be standing here right now if it wasn't for Pillar's policy talks in order to help our organization really step into the advocacy realm. And so what Pillar is asking for is funding through this business case to be able to provide these services to the nonprofit sector here in London to grow the sector. Something that many people overlook is the nonprofit sector does a lot of the things that our municipality is unable to do given their budget constraints. And so as people need more services, a lot of that has fallen onto the sector, and building capacity within the sector is hugely important, not only for individuals that work in the sector, but for all people who enjoy the services that the sector provides and for our community as a whole. So what can you guys do? First and foremost, when we look at the three business cases I talked about and the SEEP, it is an average annual taxpayer impact of $52.76. I know budgets are tight. However, the long-term impacts of these business cases ends up being cost savings in and of themselves. So what I would ask all of you to do is please contact your councillors, contact your mayor, make sure your voices are heard. If these business cases are a top priority, make sure that these people know, because these are the ones who are making the decisions, not only for what is going to impact us over the next 4 years, but what the decisions we make now are going to have an impact leading into 2030, all the way up to 2050. Thank you so much for giving me a chance, and I'm going to pass it on over to our next one, who is Molly, London Cycle Link.
This way. Okay, thank you. I didn't know I was next. Okay. Hello, hello. There we go. Down. Ta-da. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Mixa. I'm the Executive Director at London Cycle Link. We are an advocacy organization for cyclists. We also run Squeaky Wheel Bike Co-op in Old East Village, and we have an education program called Ride to Thrive. Our mission is we help Londoners ride bicycles more. We do this by building skills and confidence
advocating for safe streets and paths, and fostering a thriving cycling culture. Our vision is London chooses cycling. Okay, so we have general advocacy priorities and then specific asks around the budget. I'll go into more detail, but generally infrastructure, maintenance of bike lanes and paths, bike parking, bike share system, and education. Specifically with regard to the multi-year budget, a big deal for us right now that's challenging is the mobility master plan. So this is a plan that's being worked on right now, a plan that will determine how London prioritizes transportation and mobility infrastructure, programs and policies for the next 25 years. It's currently in phase 2 of 3. The expected completion is early 2025. So the challenge is that a lot of great projects and ideas are going to be implemented through the mobility master plan, but it won't be out yet. So none of this stuff is being dealt with in this budget. The draft budget defers to the mobility master plan for future changes, but we wonder what that will mean. Will it mean that we have to defer the spending for the next cycle? And we hope not. With regards to the cycling budget in general, London Cycling supports all of the stuff in the budget that supports the environment, climate, and sustainability, because all of that aligns with our mission and helping Londoners ride bicycles more. Another challenge for us is that everything related to road repairs and construction also can relate to active transportation infrastructure. So there isn't a separation that's clear with expenses for those things. So our hope is that it will be integrated, but it's hard for us to know. So back to the priorities. Number 1 always is infrastructure. We want a connected grid of safe, separated bike lanes reaching all neighborhoods. So we didn't make us, but we actually wrote a letter to council in May outlining our priorities and just following up as we go along in the process. We didn't have a specific ask for this because we know that it will be part of the MMP. But again, hoping that all infrastructure improvements will consider active transportation. There has been a good recent track record of including cycling infrastructure in road improvements projects in the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of improvements, and an example in this budget would be case P3, the rapid transit business case, which notes new sidewalks and active transportation infrastructure to accompany BRT infrastructure. So there will be integration there. However, we still need a clear plan for a connected grid to make all of those lines, not just parts of lines, but to make them all connect. Maintenance. So our ask for the budget was year-round maintenance of designated and separated bicycle lanes and multi-use paths, as well as lighting on paths to extend use and safety. This includes regular snow and ice removal to pavement and removal of gravel, leaves, and debris, as well as solar night lights along the Thames Valley Parkway. We specified from the Forks of the Thames to Western as a starting place. Noting that the budget does, bike lane maintenance is in the budget, is not separated again from other road maintenance. So improvements there are not super clear, but bicycle parking. Our budget ask was high quality bicycle parking facilities that meet both long-term and short-term parking needs and are accessible at transportation destinations across London. Specifically, we had asked for 250 additional bike racks on city properties, commercial plazas, and other destinations. And then in addition to the 3 bike lockers that we now have, to add at least 3 more. And there's been general support from council around bike lockers. So we are hopeful. Lots of places, we don't have secure space to lock bikes. So you have people locking bikes to small trees, which is detrimental, or signs which are removable. And there's an awful lot of bike theft in our city. Bike share program. Again, this is something that will be included in the mobility master plan. This was part of the last budget cycle and kind of didn't get off the ground after a couple of bumps. We really want this to happen. There's bike share in many cities in Canada, North America, and it really allows people an inroad to start cycling, people who are visiting to be able to use a bike, people who've had their bikes stolen. So this is an ask of ours that we phase out part 1 of that before waiting another 4 years. This is Hamilton, by the way. And then education. So our budget ask was the promotion of the rules, rights, and responsibilities of different transportation modalities for all road and multi-use path users. We made a suggestion of this after our first suggestion. We actually got some grant funding and are already working with the city on a series of videos educating all road users about cycling infrastructure. So we're not entirely waiting for this to be done, but I see there is reference to education. I can't remember which part of the budget, but hoping that that goes ahead. That's really small, probably not useful, but anyway, I'll tell you what it says. In terms of strategic plan alignment, all of our priorities connect to the city's strategic areas of focus, including, more obviously, well-being and safety, mobility and transportation, and climate action and sustainable growth. As well, though, reconciliation, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, given the need to safely include those who do not drive. Something like lighting of multi-use paths can contribute to a safe London for women, girls, and gender diverse and trans people. And then really significantly as well, safe cycling infrastructure also touches on housing and homelessness, in that the cycle of poverty is hard to escape, but made easier with the aid of a viable transportation option. In many cases, for homeless people, that means a bike, which we see every day at the co-op. And then in terms of the business cases, the one that really stuck out for me, in addition to the general environmental, the number 56 that Leah talked about, but specifically for transportation, was business case P53, road safety enhancements, which specifically is to improve road safety through more targeted road safety projects and programs, improved on-road pavement markings, and then maintenance of boulevard bike lanes. So definitely hoping that that can be included. That's case number 53. Thank you so much, Leah, and everyone.
It's okay, I'm not talking for long. I'm just going to invite the next speaker, Jessica Cordes from Middlesex London Food Policy Council, to come up.
Hi, nice to see you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So yeah, my name's Jess Cordes and I'm past chair on Middlesex London Food Policy Council. I didn't prepare notes, so I'm looking at my phone a little bit. Want to make sure I got it up. Perfect. So as I was looking through the draft multi-year budget, I came across one business case that is specifically pertaining around food, which is P53 2026 community gardens expansion. So expanding the current community garden programs. And this business case is all about, given the increased want and need for people to be accessing community gardens for wellness, for health, for food security. The city is looking at putting in 2 new community gardens over the budget cycle. So one every other year from 2024 to 27, as well as adding an additional 30 to 35 new plots at existing gardens. So great business case, definitely supportive of that. I think the community garden program is a really important one and provides many, many different benefits across the city. However, with the Food Policy Council, our mandate really is around enhancing community food security. And I don't think that this business case alone is enough to do that. So a little bit of background on the Food Policy Council. Over the last couple of years, our organization has led a multi-phase assessment looking at community food security in London and Middlesex. This was generously funded by the City of London's Community Recovery Network funding. And we did this research through 4 phases. So full reports from each one of these phases can be found on our website. And we also have an info table if you'd like to learn a little bit more on our website, as well as the 4 phases, as is additional critical analysis and an executive summary that looks at an overall list of recommendations that came out of this research. So there are 11 recommendations I'll go through very quickly. And then I'm going to touch on how these can tie into the multi-year budget. So first, prioritize reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Second, build on the successes of existing programs because we know that there's lots happening, but they're a little bit disjointed. Third, be attentive to diversity in policy making. Fourth, set immediate goals in at least one of the 5 subject areas of the Ivy environmental scan, which was an environmental scan led by business students at Ivy Business School, looking at food system policies and practices across different municipalities. 5, use different types of metrics to track successes and failures. And 6, be a leader in supporting local food producers. 7, create sustainable funding for food programs and initiatives. Number 8, grow Middlesex London's identity as a leader in community food security. To me, this is super important when we think about the land that we're situated upon in southwestern Ontario and how we are home to some of the most rich, fertile agricultural land in the world. This region really has an opportunity to protect, restore, and to grow our identity in that area. And number 9 is supporting secure and sustainable jobs, completely connected to that in the food system. 10, incorporate sustainable food security initiatives into urban design, things like community gardens, rooftop gardens, and all of that. And number 11, reduce and eliminate food deserts. So coming back to the budget, I just wanted to share that context because it was a couple of years of research. We had some really great findings out of it. And how I think these findings can be applied to the multi-year budget is, yes, we support business case P26 about expanding the community gardens program, especially in priority neighborhoods. I think that's really important. And I think there's some other ways that community food security can be prioritized within the multi-year budget. We're thinking out to 2027 here. We want a thriving, sustainable city, and food is really an intricate part of that. And I think food is a part too that can be tied in and interwoven with some of the other strategic priorities that are in the budget, like housing and homelessness, like wellness, it might seem a little findings that came out of our research was the municipality of Ada in the Netherlands has designated food as a policy area in the municipality. So there is an elected official and 5 full-time staff that work on the portfolio of food policy at the city. Another way, because that's kind of different from the way we do things here, but really interesting. And another thing that could be important and included in this budget cycle is grant programs and funding that support ongoing projects, such as the LCRN that funded this research for us. Next is supporting increased collaboration and cohesion in the sector. This can look like really a lot of different things, and so many benefits could come out of it. But one tangible piece that I thought could be directly applied into the multi-year budget is the development of an emergency food plan. Because when emergencies happen, like the pandemic, climate emergencies, severe weather, things like that, it's going to be really important to have a plan for emergency food distribution. So something like that can be funded through the budget. And at the same time, it's going to have that co-benefit of increasing collaboration, fostering cohesion within the sector that's really crucial to strengthening our food system. And third, the preservation of rural and agricultural communities. Like I said, London is home to some of the richest, most fertile agricultural land that we have in the world. Really, really critical that we protect this resource. So within the City of London boundaries, there is a lot of agricultural land that can be protected. Adding a food lens to things like zoning, to development, to bylaws can help not only protect that land, but also integrate food into decision-making so that we do eliminate those food deserts that exist. Thank you so very much, and I will pass it on.
Next, we have Daria Kaczynski from Thames Talbot Land Trust.
Down for me, for sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. So I'm Daria, and I'm the Executive Director at Thames Talbot Land Trust. And I just wanted to go through a few points and talk about some of the business cases. So I think it's fairly clear to all of us that are gathered here that our community is facing some very serious environmental challenges. We've lost a huge portion of natural habitats, resulting, not surprisingly, in a lot of species being listed as at risk, particularly in southwestern Ontario. And some of these losses are due to historical land clearing during settlement and colonization, but the losses and degradation of lands are ongoing today, especially in this area and within the city. We continue, as was just mentioned, development and pressures for housing, for instance, are taking up a lot of agricultural lands that we also need that are really important for food production in the city as well. So I think we have to keep that in mind, that this isn't just a one-time historical thing that happened. Land is continually being lost in our region to other uses, but we can't get that back once that nature is lost and once the agricultural lands are lost. So the other issue that is very much tied to all this is the climate crisis we've been talking about. There's so many different ripple effects in the community. If we don't address the climate crisis, many of these other things are going to continue to be issues as well. And there's a lot of things that we think about in budgets and in cost savings, but investing in nature and investing in nature-based climate solutions can help us reduce costs down the line. It's just that we don't usually actually price out the ecological services that we get from nature. So we don't realize how much we're actually gaining right now for free and how much we're going to have to pay for in the future. So extreme fluctuations are becoming the new normal, and they're going to affect wildlife, but also human populations. And these two clips are from last year, where we were in massive flooding and cleanup, and 2 months later, we were in a total drought, and we were worried about food production. So I think this shows you the extreme fluctuations we're going to be facing. So one thing that we are really focused on is land conservation. And protecting land is one of the ways that we can actually address both of these issues. So land conservation contributes to biodiversity protection and to nature-based climate solutions. Is also linked to all the ecosystem services that we depend on, food security, and the health and well-being of community members through connection with land and with nature. So we need nature to thrive, but right now nature needs us to speak up. So the City of London strategic plan identifies climate action and sustainable growth as one of the priority focus areas for the next 4 years. 2 of those outcomes linked to that include London has a strong and healthy environment, and London is one of the greenest and most resilient cities in Canada in alignment with the Council declared climate emergency and the Climate Emergency Action Plan. So this multi-year budget needs to include funding to support those actions if we want to see these much needed outcomes over the next few years. The City of London is actually quite rich with natural areas where community members can connect with nature. We didn't see anything in the budget about new or additional land protection. And again, that may be somewhere in the base budgets that isn't pulled out separately. But we were pleased to see that there's investments in management and enhancement of existing natural areas that are proposed. So we encourage you to support case P62. You can read up all about it in the very long document. But this one really speaks to increasing funds for the management of London's environmentally significant areas. These are London's best natural areas and provide habitat for many rare species. Many of them also contain trails for nature access by the community. In addition, these natural areas contribute to climate action by sequestering carbon, and additional benefits could be gained from restoration and naturalization more city lands to native ecosystems. Additional investments are also needed to increase the health of natural areas through naturalizing boulevards and reducing roadside mowing. We really like that case because it has a net positive for biodiversity. And also additional cases listed on the slide for better community planning so that we can protect natural areas from the pressures of development. This can also apply for agricultural lands as well. And also looking at restoration of degraded areas like Silver Creek, where we can really gain some biodiversity improvements by investing. Also wanted to speak to a couple things about water. So we are really lucky to have the Thames River and many smaller streams running through this beautiful city. The Thames is designated as a heritage river and is home to many species of turtles, my favorite, frogs, fish, mussels, birds, and of course, many plants. But the waterways also suffer from the many impacts of a growing urban population. And one of the most significant is the overflows of untreated sewage into our waterways, which, based on my preliminary looking at the website, occurred on 17 days in 2023. So as we experience more extreme storms and we have water that we cannot manage from storms, this is going to be occurring more often. So we need to look at the serious threats that this poses to the health of our waterways. So we are really in support of the wastewater and treatment cases. I just listed some of them there. There's many more as well that address this pollution case. I think we have to make this very clear. This may be an infrastructure project, but it has very serious environmental impacts. And of course, as mentioned, the climate emergency is an overarching issue that affects the health of our ecosystems and community. Others have already spoken to this case, so we just wanted to say, yes, we also support it, but wanted to take some time to talk about the more nature-specific things. If we don't act on the climate emergency, we will not be building a resilient future for this city. So as a land trust, we are committed to protecting, conserving, and restoring nature, contributing to a stable climate, human well-being, and healthy habitats for all species. This is a critical time and we need to take action. We need to make a promise to future generations to protect the lands and waters that will sustain them. So we really ask you to ask your local councillor to invest in nature now so that nature can continue to take care of us. This is a photo from a while ago and a founding member that talked about really that promise to future generations. The actions we take today impact what we are going to be giving as an inheritance to future generations. So I hope that you will consider taking action and engaging with the multi-year budget so that councillors can hear how important the environment is to the citizens here. So thank you for attending and engaging. Your voice matters and will shape the next 4 years, and as indicated by others, set a direction for future budgets as well. So thank you to the city staff who are here tonight as well, and to Len for providing this opportunity. And I'll pass it on to the next person.
So last but not least, we have Bob Morrison from Climate Action London.
Thank you. Depends which way you hold it. So I'm going to be talking about an event that we're putting on in 2 days. So that's 2 sleeps from now for the finance team at the city. That's maybe 1 sleep. So it's available. If you look at the Lens last week's newsletter, you'll see it. If you get Climate Action London's newsletter, it's in there. It's on our website, climateactionlondon.ca. If you go to Eventbrite and look for free stuff on Thursday, it's there as well. So this is a citizen-led summit, or we're calling sustainability summit, and it's to engage people with the budget and do the deep dive, which is really difficult for the finance team to do in any presentation. So I have to say big thanks to Kyle Murray for lots of questions I've sent him over months, starting last summer. There is another Kyle Murray that works at the city. He was of no use at all. So with respect, I come from accounting and a finance background. So respect, I totally appreciate what the finance team does, and it's really important work. However, with this, as Kyle said, a heavy document of 357 pages and a whole bunch of other terminology, there's a lot of barriers to engagement for people. It's the time to read it. It's the terminology. It's the all these other things. And also people get overwhelmed. It's like, oh, will my voice be meaningful? It's how am I going to engage in a way? So we've come up with the Sustainability Summit. So you don't have to know anything about finance, reserve funds, accounting to participate. You bring a passion, whatever that passion is, to make our community better, and that's your starting point. So we do a condensed document. We want to do is, a lot of people have been talking about the strong mayor powers. Supposedly, it's important to have strong community support for some things. So I appreciate everything all the other groups have said. We support them. This is community response. So this is not going to be a letter from Climate Action London or some of our organizing partners in this event, which is ReForest London, LEN, Pillar, Council of Canadians, Blue Communities, and other concerned individuals that have helped form this event. So it's going to be a community response. And what we did is we dove into the base budget. We looked at the business cases. We talked to the finance team. We talked to a lot of managers at the different service areas. We requested meetings with the mayor and every single councillor. Most of them responded. So we appreciate that. And some out of that, we've come out and said, we came up with 14 items to discuss at our summit. And if, regardless of whether you're coming at from a climate lens or an environmental perspective, you should see a lot of things reflected and a lot of things that have already been talked about. If you start from a social equity perspective, and that's your starting point, you should see a lot of things reflected in there as well, right? Economic efficiency of how the city is going to grow. You should see that in there as well. In context, probably important to think about is London's going to continue to be one of the fastest growing cities in Ontario, right? Another 200,000 people will be in London projected by 2050. It's very important the decisions made in this multi-year budget will set the course for how the city grows and all the environmental protections, right? If we're going to grow inward and upward, we need investment now, right? Later is too late. So we've got two options on Thursday. There's an in-person event in the afternoon. We're getting catering from the Bicycle Cafe. I know what you're saying. It's like, you should have led with that. Like, you know, and for the people that can attend, there's an online version at night. One of the things when we're talking, we're going to do the deep dive on the items that I spoke about earlier, is we want to talk about connections and co-benefits and really start to look at these things differently, right? So whether you look at transit, for example, it's a climate issue for sure. It's an equity issue. It's protecting even how we grow, right? We're going to grow inward and upward and not pave over our farmland and not destroy our natural areas. We need to grow more efficiently, right? So we're not so car dependent as London is. So through that discussion, the goal is to have a community response for the January public participation meeting in Strong. In addition, so we're going to have a common letter that hopefully everybody will sign on to. And additionally, people that attend, maybe they'll be inspired even more and have more of that in-depth knowledge in to step forward in items that they're separately passionate about, to email the mayor or the councillors as well. I have to thank people that have already been sharing some of the stuff on social media, Councillor Frank and Len and everybody else. So yeah, I hope you continue to be engaged in how the city grows. Thanks.
Okay, thank you to, yeah, well, gotta use some muscle there. Thank you to all of our groups for your presentations. Sorry, I didn't get to introduce everyone the exact way I wanted, but we had some great information, and I just want to thank you all for presenting. So here are some important dates for you to keep in mind as we continue to engage with the multi-year budget. So January 29th by 9 a.m., please submit your feedback to the online survey on the city's website. January 29th also at 4 p.m., head out to the PPM. We can expect at the very latest the mayor's budget to be tabled on the 30th or 31st. And the 27th is another public participation meeting opportunity, also at 4 p.m. We're going to send you all these resources in a follow-up email, so please look out for that. Also, if you are looking for ways to get involved with the London Environmental Network or any of our members, those are the ways to do it there. And I just wanted to say a big final thank you to the City of London, Kyle and his team, our presenters here, also our venue host Goodwill, and all of you for coming out and being very attentive and asking questions and being involved. You're really an important part in this process. So we just want to thank you as well. Before we head out, feel free to grab some information from some of the members that have tables here. You could grab another coffee or tea to head out, but we are done at 8. So unfortunately not as much time for mingling after as we hoped, but we hope you really enjoyed the event, and we hope to see you at the next event. Thanks.